This is the wreck of the Graf Spee, lying on the seafloor just 65 feet beneath the murky waters of the South Atlantic, off the coast of Uruguay. The rusting corpse of a Nazi warship. It was deliberately scuttled to avoid capture, swallowed by silt and nearly forgotten for decades. The Admiral Graf Spee was once just another relic from World War II, lost to time until now. In early 2025, a new team of divers descended into the depths, seeking answers. What they found inside this once-feared pocket battleship shocked even the experts. Sealed tight for over 80 years, a hidden vault was waiting, and what was inside? That's where the story turns from history to something far more unbelievable. The Phantom of the South Atlantic. In the shadowy waters off Uruguay, a steel beast once roamed, fast, lethal, and built to defy expectations. The Admiral Graf Spee, a so-called pocket battleship of Nazi Germany's Kriegsmarine, wasn't the largest warship ever built, but pound for pound, she was one of the most dangerous threats on the open sea in the early days of World War II. Launched in 1934 and commissioned a year later, she was a masterstroke of strategic deception. Officially, she weighed just over 10,000 tons to comply with the Treaty of Versailles. In truth, she was closer to 16,000 tons, and armed with 6 massive 11-inch guns, firepower far more typical of a full battleship. Powered by diesel engines, she could reach speeds of nearly 29 knots, able to outrun anything that could outgun her, and outgun anything that could catch her. In 1939, as war ignited across Europe, the Graf Spee was dispatched to the South Atlantic with a clear mission: operate as a commerce raider. Her goal was to disrupt Allied shipping, targeting merchant vessels carrying fuel, supplies, and weapons. And in that mission, she was devastatingly effective. Over several months, she sank 9 merchant ships, totaling over 50,000 tons of cargo, all without the loss of a single crew member from those ships. Her captain, Hans Langsdorff, maintained a strict adherence to the rules of war, ensuring that all captured sailors were treated humanely, transferred to supply ships, or delivered safely to neutral ports. But every hunter eventually becomes the hunted. In December 1939, 3 British Royal Navy cruisers, the heavy cruiser HMS Exeter and the light cruisers HMS Ajax and HMS Achilles, located and confronted the Graf Spee near the mouth of the River Plate. What followed was the Battle of the River Plate, the first major naval engagement of the war. Outgunned and outnumbered, the British relied on coordination and persistence to bring her down. It worked, but not without cost. The Graf Spee inflicted serious damage on all 3 British ships, crippling the Exeter and damaging both Ajax and Achilles, but she herself took multiple direct hits. The damage wasn't fatal, but it was serious enough to force her into port for repairs. Langsdorff steered his wounded ship into Montevideo harbor. According to international law, Uruguay, officially neutral, could only allow her to stay for 72 hours. British diplomats worked furiously behind the scenes, using misinformation and political pressure to convince Langsdorff that a superior British fleet awaited him just beyond the river mouth. In reality, there was no such fleet, but the bluff worked. Faced with what he believed to be a hopeless tactical situation and unwilling to sacrifice his crew in a doomed battle, Langsdorff made a drastic decision. On December 17, 1939, just outside Montevideo, the Admiral Graf Spee was scuttled by her own crew. Thousands of onlookers watched from the shore as explosive charges tore through the ship's hull, sending fire and smoke billowing into the sky. Her guns would never fire again. Days later, in a Buenos Aires hotel room, Hans Langsdorff, the naval officer, wrapped himself in the German naval ensign and took his own life with a pistol. He left behind a letter defending his decision, stating he had acted in what he believed were the best interests of his men and his country. The wreck of the Graf Spee didn't vanish immediately. For decades, parts of the ship remained visible above the waters of the River Plate. During low tide, her skeletal superstructure jutted above the surface, twisted, rusting, a metallic ghost watching over the bay. Locals and tourists would circle the remains by boat, staring at the once powerful warship that had shifted naval strategy. But over time, nature took its toll. Mud and silt consumed her. Storms broke her apart. Currents dragged pieces deeper into the sediment. By the 1990s, only a few fragments remained visible, and even those disappeared with the tide. The ship that once struck fear into the oceans had become a quiet part of the riverbed, silent, nearly forgotten. To some, the Graf Spee was just another artifact of war, but to others, she remained an enigma. What secrets had yet to be uncovered? What compartments had never been opened? Could something still lie hidden deep within the hull, sealed for nearly a century? Those lingering questions would spark new interest and eventually, new dives. What they would find would exceed all expectations. After the war, interest in the Graf Spee never fully faded. To British intelligence and naval experts, her technology was a subject of deep interest. Her radar and fire control systems in particular had given her a tactical advantage at sea, though heavily damaged by scuttling charges. Reports suggest British intelligence teams worked with Uruguayan authorities to inspect the remains. Whether they recovered anything of strategic value is unclear, but it's no secret that the Allies sought to reverse engineer German tech whenever possible. For most of the 20th century, however, the Graf Spee remained largely undisturbed, reduced to fragments and legend. That changed in 2004. A Uruguayan-led team of divers, supported by private funding, began a recovery effort aimed at preserving what little remained before the riverbed claimed it forever. The challenges were immense: shallow but unstable waters, strong currents, poor visibility, but the results were astonishing. Among the artifacts retrieved was the ship's massive 2017 rangefinder, a mechanical marvel that had allowed the Graf Spee to target ships with eerie precision. Then came the Eagle *. The discovery of the sealed compartment aboard the Admiral Graf Spee has sent waves through the global historical and intelligence communities, not merely for the nature of the artifacts recovered, but for the extraordinary implications they carry. What began as a salvage operation on a wrecked warship has transformed into a full-blown historical excavation, one that may redefine our understanding of early World War II naval operations. For decades, the Graf Spee was thought to be a closed chapter, a footnote in naval warfare history. Now, it is clear that the ship still holds secrets preserved through engineering foresight and the chaos of battle. The compartment, shielded from time by reinforced bulkheads and naval-grade sealing techniques, functioned less as a relic than as a time capsule. Inside, the waterproof trunks held a combination of artifacts never previously recovered in tandem: meticulously preserved military documents, customized encryption hardware, and deeply personal officer logs. The level of detail, from wax-sealed coded transmissions to personal annotations that revealed the inner workings and doubts of the ship's command staff, paints a multi-dimensional picture of life aboard one of Nazi Germany's most famous raiders. This find isn't just academic, it opens up an entirely new vector of historical interpretation. The recovered communication logs challenge the long-held notion that the Graf Spee operated largely autonomously. Instead, it appears that Berlin was in near-constant contact with the ship, offering tactical updates and requesting operational feedback. This level of coordination suggests a broader and more sophisticated naval strategy than many scholars previously believed, possibly including undisclosed German vessels operating under the radar in South Atlantic waters. The encryption machines, unique in their rotor configurations and signal modulation, could provide the long-missing link in deciphering Kriegsmarine communications that connected U-boat packs with surface fleets. For cryptographers and code historians, these field-customized variants and the accompanying configuration sheets represent a rare opportunity to reconstruct authentic 1939 cipher cycles, something that could potentially rewrite what we know about German naval encryption capabilities in the war's opening months. But perhaps most haunting and illuminating are the personal journals, likely penned by a high-ranking officer, possibly Captain Hans Langsdorff himself. These entries go beyond strategy and delve into the emotional and psychological burdens faced by officers caught between ideology, duty, and the ever-widening chaos of global war. One particular entry, dated just days before the fateful Battle of the River Plate, questioned the viability of Germany's commerce raiding doctrine and hinted at strained relations with Nazi high command. Such introspections, raw, human, and politically nuanced, for historians a new layer of interpretation, not just what happened, but how it was felt and understood by those living it. As of now, only a fraction of the recovered material has been translated or made public. The process is painstaking, involving preservation teams, translators, historians, and security experts. Some documents are in archaic naval code. Others are so delicate that even exposure to air risks disintegration. And yet, even this early stage has ignited global interest. International symposiums are being planned. Academic journals are preparing special issues. Museums are exploring the logistics of a traveling exhibit. Still, the team remains wary. Every artifact has to be verified, every detail cross-checked. The potential for disinformation, misinterpretation, or even political controversy is high. After all, this isn't just naval history, it's geopolitics, intelligence, and memory, all wrapped into one sealed vault. So how long will it take before the full story is known? That depends not just on the pace of translation and analysis, but on whether additional compartments or artifacts are found in the wreck or elsewhere.